Hi, everyone. Welcome to SoDA Series Live. Each month, Adobe and the Society of Digital Agencies come together to bring you candid, in-depth discussions with agency founders and creative leaders from all over the world. Our goal here is to help keep you informed of some of the key trends and topics helping to shape and influence the creative community. I'm Kristen Bell on the Adobe XD Strategic Development team here, and I'm joined by Tom Beck, Executive Director of SoDA. We're your hosts. So Tom, for those of you joining who haven't heard of SoDA, could you take a moment just to tell us a little bit about your organization and maybe overall mission?
Yeah, sure thing. First of all, thanks all for being here. We're thrilled to have you. Again, I'm Tom Beck. I'm Executive Director of SoDA. SoDA was founded in 2007. We're a member-based organization for the founders and owners of digital design studios. And our work focuses on helping the leadership teams and the executive teams at these studios be more connected, have more resources at their fingertips, and be more inspired in their journeys to create and grow really exceptional digital businesses. And so I'm thrilled to be here today, and big thanks to Adobe. Adobe's one of the founding partners of the organization from way back in 2007. And they've just been a wonderful partner for us in this community for the last 13 years. And we're excited to have you all here today.
Oh, it's been such a great pleasure to work with you. And I love that we're able to come together to do this and extend our partnership and some of the learnings to the broader creative space as well. So today we have a super exciting conversation lined up for you. I'd like to introduce Talon Wadsworth, a principal designer here at Adobe and a major design advocate in the industry. I'm sure he's a familiar name to many of you. And Talon will be speaking with two of the founders at Jam3, SoDA member agency. So Tom, would you do the honors of introducing our guests today?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm thrilled to welcome both Adrian Belina and Pablo Vio, two of the founding partners at Jam3. Unless we forget our good friend Mark McQuillan is the third partner, but can't be with us here today. I've known Adrian and Pablo for almost a decade now. And it's just been a pleasure and an honor to know them and to watch them grow this business. Jam3 is an incredible digital design, experience design, innovation studio. Founded in Toronto, they now operate out of 4 offices: Toronto, Los Angeles, Amsterdam, and Montevideo. They're in the FWA Hall of Fame, one of just a very, very few agencies. And Adrian and Pablo were also named to Adweek's Agency Leaders to Watch in 2020. So we're thrilled to have them here today, and big thanks to Talon for moderating this discussion. Before I kick it back over to Talon, just a couple quick meeting logistics. Kristen and I are going to drop off the camera, and we will be with you guys in LinkedIn, monitoring questions and comments. And we would encourage you, if you have questions for Adrian or Pablo or Talon, please post them in the LinkedIn stream. We'll capture those, and then we've got some time reserved at the end of the meeting to address those questions. So big thanks again for joining us. We appreciate it, and we're looking forward to a great discussion today. And I'll turn it back over to Talon.
Great. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Kristen. Adrian, Pablo, welcome. You guys, this is the best part of my job, honestly. And the reason that really has kept me at Adobe for the last 10 years is that I love talking shop with other creatives. And of course, no one better to be talking to than two sort of amazingly talented designers in yourselves, and of course, leaders here running Jam3. So welcome. Thanks for joining me.
No, thank you. The pleasure is ours.
Cool, excellent. And you guys are both out there in Toronto, right? Sort of keeping safe during all this crazy time.
I'm actually in Los Angeles.
Oh, sorry, you're in LA. I forgot. Adrian's out there in LA. So so you guys have this long distance relationship going on, really. So.
We do, yeah.
All right, cool, excellent. Well, thank you guys for joining us. Let's get started. Let's kind of go back a little bit and kind of give everybody kind of a baseline, like with Jam3. You guys have founded 16 years ago, which is amazing. I mean, congratulations on that. You guys have built something truly stellar with the body of work that you've done, and the team that you've put together there. But going back to the very early beginnings, Pablo, we were going to talk about this last week. Tell us a little bit about the beginning for Jam3. How did Jam3 start? I know that you guys were in school together, and I know there's a big emphasis on not just design but also technology at the time. So why don't you describe to us a little bit about that founding origin story for Jam3?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Jam3 was really started, really at the cusp of like the .com boom, and right when the internet was taking off, and Flash was a real big player there. Building these motion interactive experiences that were really just taking your static web pages into this sort of next level of motion and interactivity. So we I'd all come from different backgrounds. Myself, I was a graphic designer. Adrian had come from marketing and advertising. Mark had come from screenwriting. So at different sort of points in our lives, sort of decided this is the time to go back to school and learn how to build these things. So we all met at this post-grad called at the time, and I'm going to date myself by the terminology, but it was called interactive multimedia. And it was very much it was less about design theory, and it was really more about code theory and how to build these things. So we were learning how to build Flash, HTML, PHP, MySQL. So we really graduated from there as developers, but we'd all come from these like really unique backgrounds. And Adrian's laughing because it's like creatives as developers. I mean, you just don't really hear those two words in one sentence. But we graduated with that sort of unique perspective on how to build these things, and we were so hyped just by what the industry was doing. We were huge fans of FWA. I remember at the time 2Advanced was at the top of the league there, and we were trying to achieve to bring that same level of work to the internet. So we sort of said, well, why don't we just combine our efforts? We all know how to code, and we all come from different perspectives. So let's team up and start a company that's really pushing creative design and technology at that same level. We used to call ourselves creatively technical and technically creative, right? So that's really what empowered us to start in the industry. And over time, we started off with like microsites for dentists, and started off doing small jobs, but it was also like the nicest dentist that you've ever seen, right? Because it was done in Flash, and it was motion and rollovers and all that stuff. So we were geeking out on all that stuff, and it was amazing. And over time, we just sort of developed this sort of very unique perspective on being like the digital SWAT team, so to speak, and bringing in other like-minded individuals into the organization that had that sort of same passion for doing amazing work, equally creative and equally technical as well. And here we are 16 years later, still doing what we love to do on a different scale and a different capacity with obviously bigger clients, but that hunger to do innovative work that's really moving the needle for businesses hasn't died down. It's what's keeping us focused into the future.
Yeah, that really resonates with me. I mean, even when I started school, like the digital tools just opened up so many avenues for communication and expression. It felt I didn't want to limit myself, right, to sort of like putting myself in one designer bucket or another designer bucket. It's like, no, I have all these things now. How am I going to combine them together to kind of communicate or like do something new or exciting or innovative? Like that. Like I said, like I think we all kind of limit ourselves and we put ourselves in these buckets. So that really resonates with me. And Flash, man, Flash. The story of like where we are today, I think a lot has to do with Flash.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool. I mean, anything else? I mean, Adrian, from you on that front, like anything that you felt like was important to kind of the seed of like what you are today, back in those early days, like anything that really stands out for you that feels like, oh, this is still the area that we're really mining or really building upon, in our time at Jam3?
I really feel that it's, it was a simple thing, which I always say is, do good work with good people. I mean, that was kind of our initial goal. And that may sound overly simplified, but that's why I come into work every day. And that's, we try to find people who want the same thing, right? And, for us, we've always just been fans of the industry, and, that aspect of passion and wanting to always push beyond what is possible and do the like the utter edge of what is available out there is, I don't know, tantamount to what we're trying to do.
Yeah. I mean, so kind of on that vein, just kind of go a little kind of further there. Like, how do you balance like doing good work versus like running a business? I know that's a huge challenge for a lot of people, and something that, you know, when I first got into the industry, I looked at the, you know, my mentors and people who are running the studios, like that's a big challenge, is to keep true to who you are and the work that you want to do, at the same time keeping the doors open and, you know, building a business and building a team. You know, how do you balance those things?
Absolutely. I mean, for us, it's always been, you know, it's momentum is a huge thing. When you're starting your own studio, when you're working a business, I think this applies whether you're 5 people or 500. So for us, it was just keeping that ball like rolling forward. And the biggest challenge really with that is always that, you know, when things are, you know, there's stress when there's no projects, there's stress when there's too many projects. And so it's really trying to find that balance, because, you know, it's the same thing that a lot of freelancers will encounter, which is, you know, when the phone's ringing and you have to keep telling everybody no, you worry that that's a really big thing. And oh my God, are they going to call back and stuff like that? And so for us, it's just really monitoring that balance. But in all honesty, it's surrounding yourself with good people who are aligned with the same vision and who are empowering you to kind of like want to go forward and who understand what the bigger goal is and how you're trying to always push forward. I think, you know, it's very much like the, you know, the sports team philosophy, right? Everybody's chasing the same thing and everybody wants to win. So. Yeah,
definitely. What was like just something went a little off there. Where did my too many screens? You know, talk to me, you know, Adrian and Pablo, feel free to jump in here. Talk a little bit about your leadership approach. I mean, you know, this has been I think a transition. This can be a transition for anyone who's sort of in the industry for a long time, grows in their career. Like, how do you go from, like, you know, it was really just the 3 of you, you know, doing the work, being hands-on, you know, handling kind of every aspect of the creative work, to then now, you know, growing a team. You know, talk about that shift and change in your leadership style, and kind of like how do you go from like 3 to now over 100 designers kind of all across the world?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly been an interesting ride, because I think especially for, you know, Pablo, Mark, and myself, and our other new partners, Mike, Miguel, and Jordan as well. So, you know, we were young. We were incredibly young when we started. You know, we started Jam3 when we were roughly, you know, 20, 25, 26. And so none of us have the experience of working at an agency our size, which is really kind of funny. But at the same time, we also don't have the baggage and the broken ways that they are also working as well. I'd say that every time you double, you have to kind of like reinvent yourself or do something a little bit differently. And I feel like most studios, most agencies, you know, these things will happen. You'll see it happen at like 15, 30, 60, 120. We're at one of those points right now because we're at 120. And every time you do that, something has to kind of like give or be done a little bit differently. You know, but really, I think the focus is empowering others to basically go forth and handle something on their own. And that's a really difficult thing for a lot of business owners to grasp. And I think it's the biggest step to basically, like, letting go is the biggest step to kind of allowing something to move forward, because you'll never grow without it. Yeah. And so for us, you know, I think, you know, we jokingly say that like about around 30 was, when we were around 30 people, that was when, you know, the ropes were there's too many things to hold. And, you know, Pablo and I would, let's say, divide the creative projects, and it was too much to be involved on everything. And so we started just kind of like giving things off to people. And we had this like jokey saying, 'cause we're obviously a very jokey culture at the office, but we had, we used to say, you know, make it happen and just go ahead and do it, right? But don't fuck it up, right? So we actually had the giant mural on the wall where it was just like, I'm giving you this thing, but also like, you know, you better do it well, right? And so, but it was like obviously super tongue in cheek, and like obviously everybody knows that. But so for us, that was the first key, and then, you know, really finding talent who really wants to take the business and is like looking forward and looking future forward. And you know, the 3 partners that we've added still are the 3 partners that I mentioned, Mike, Jordan, and Miguel, have been instrumental, as well as so many other people along the way who have helped Jam3 get to each next level. But I think it's the collaboration and our working style and partnership style. Like I tell people this all the time. I'm truly blessed to have partners like Mark and Pablo, and obviously Mike as well, and Jordan and Miguel. But when we first started off, I think so many businesses, you see so many businesses fail where the founders kind of start headbutting or disagreeing in the direction. And I'm truly blessed that these three young guys who were in their 20s, met each other, and we've had no hiccups. Knock on wood. But.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's to Adrian's point. I think you partnerships and businesses is very much how you would think about a marriage. You have to. We all have our different styles and personalities, and you find ways of how to work with each other. And I think that having a focus and a vision that aligns, right? I think is important. That was a big part of us bringing in, as Adrian was saying, bringing in other talent that had the same mindset. Bringing in other partners that had the same mindset, because to us, a talent is table stakes, right? It's people need to have the talent, of course, but the other half of that is personality and vision, right? And if you have that same personality and vision, then everything else will work itself out, right?
Yeah, I mean, that really resonates with me, like just being able to sort of see the bigger picture, right? And to understand that growing a creative business is more than just about doing amazing work. Yes, that's a huge factor of it, but getting in the right people, building the right relationships, and all kind of rising together, right? Like that's a huge shift in a mindset, and as you mature in your career and as you grow. So it's pretty. I mean, a big testament to the work you guys have done. I mean, to build what you've built. I mean, you maybe again, this is maybe for either of you, but talk about building a global team to a certain extent. I mean, Adrian, you're there in LA, Pablo's in Toronto, you've got offices, 2 other cities. Like how do you go about doing that? And of course, keep this tight, culture, this sort of unified group of creatives who are going out there and doing their best work together and growing the business.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can take that one, Adrian, if you. But I mean, I think, if I take this back to early days when we first started off, we were also very, uniquely positioned because, we started out of Toronto, and in Toronto, for some of you that don't know much about the city, it's super multicultural. It's just a big, mixing pot of different cultures. And, everyone, of course identifies as being Canadian, but you're all, Italian, Canadian, Portuguese, Canadian, and so forth. So, we had a really unique staff, just because we had people from all over the world that were Canadian that resided in Toronto. So that kind of build this diverse sort of base from the get-go of different people from all over the world. And and as Adrian and I and Mark, early days, we're like, we want to be doing some of the best work in the industry. We need to work with the best talent. And I think that's, of course, you're always looking in your own backyard for that talent. You want to hire local people for sure. Yeah. But at the same time, we weren't limited by our geographical presence. And, we started working with a lot of people out of, Brazil and then France. And that sort of mindset of just, there's no borders here. Right. And then really working with the best talent has sort of opened up the talent pool for us. So today, proudly, we have about, I believe 20 different languages are spoken. Wow. 25 different languages spoken at the headquarters. That's not including obviously the other locations. And obviously from a diversity standpoint, we still have a lot of work to do there, and something that we're really focused on. But I think that basis has given us the capability of having all these different POVs, and it's obviously made that sort of transition into opening up offices much easier as well. I'd love to sit here and say all of our locations have been strategic, but they're not. A lot of times new offices are partly strategic, but is also somebody that's in Toronto is moving back home to Amsterdam, and then that created a unique proposition for us to open up an office. Same thing happened with LA, where Adrian was had his partner that was moving to LA, and that created a really great opportunity for us to open up our office in LA, and that's where we met Jordan. And so a lot of the there was these serendipitous moments when we were opening up offices where we had talent that was here that was moving down there. There's obviously that business ambition, but at the end of the day, it's that like-minded people, right? It's about bringing those people that are from our original DNA at Toronto to open up those offices. And that's what creates that, that blanket of security for the, protecting the culture, because, it's like you said, it's not just about doing great work. It's about that culture of people that are creating that great work, and then being able to transport that into other locations is so important. Like, we don't want to be seen as a global company that has, one office is better than the other, right? We wanted to create that same sort of like Jam3 flavor, if you will, across all the offices, and that's been sort of like our success.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead.
I was just going to add to that is, one of those things that we've done is, I think each one of those offices, you can open up. There's so much opportunity out there, and whether that's, Shanghai or Berlin or London, sometimes it's those little pivotal moments of an opportunity opening up that kind of gives you that either courage or the ability to basically say, like, okay, you know what, we're actually going to do this. Because, for a long time we had debated between, we're like, oh, we should probably be in Europe. And we're like, okay, well, maybe next year, we're really busy right now or something, we're debating, should it be London? Should it be Paris? Should it be Amsterdam? And then you have one of those moments. And same thing that happened with LA. We were debating between San Francisco and LA. And then, sometimes the path just opens up for you and gives you, like, okay, let's jump in. But, one of the things that we've done, and I think it's been such a wonderful success, and I love that we do it. And, we haven't been able to do it for since March, but generally speaking, when we have any sort of director level hire, or when we've had somebody open up a new office, we actually bring them back to Jam3. So they start the headquarters in Toronto. So they actually start in Toronto for the first, as long as we can have them, right? So obviously families, this may differ from some people, but it's been from 1 month upwards to like 3 months. And they get the sense and the feel, and they understand who they're dealing with, who the partners are, who the other heads of departments are. And then they go back to their city, and now they understand, okay, this is the vibe over there. I need to create the same vibe over here. And, for us, we have 4 offices, but it's effectively one office, right? Because we all partner on all the projects. So, we're just in different locations for sales reasons, for, lifestyle reasons, for talent, et cetera. But, on any given project, Toronto, LA, and Montevideo are all working in sync. So.
I mean, this has been a challenging year for everyone. Do you feel like that at least smoothed the transition, into this sort of time of quarantining and everybody working from home? Do you feel like this setup really, and this organic growth, this sort of that you, as you've gone out there and opened up these offices in different ways and been working online, as you've grown, I feel like that smoothed the transition a little bit? Have you guys ran into any hiccups with this year with the team? I
mean, certainly we have, for sure. I mean, this isn't, this has been a hard year on all of us, I think. And I think a big part of our culture at Jam3 was being in the office with people, and sharing lunches with them, sharing, dinner and drinks after work, and, really, creating bonds with people. And I think it hasn't been the same. And we'd be, joking to say if like, oh yeah, it's been a breeze. But I think, one thing that, stood up for me, back in March with our staff is that, there was like incredible resilience and teamwork and camaraderie around getting through this tough time together. And I think that every single staff member put their best foot forward to help us through that initial month, like in March and April, where, the shock of like life has changed as we know it. And I think everyone was just, really, there to help Jam3 get through this. And we tried our best to, to support people as well, by giving them the, computer screens and, desks and chairs, and making sure that they were comfortable at home, and then creating opportunities for us to connect through different sort of events that we would have. Like we'd have a variety o'clock every week where we'd have like people presenting or just an opportunity for people to share how they're feeling about COVID. And so we kept communications pretty open. But we obviously struggled with this whole idea of like human connection, right? And that's something that for a long time, we were like, oh, this is, we feel like this is going to blow over. We'll be back in the office in 2 months, and then 2 months turn into 3 months, and then 4 months, and then suddenly now here we are 8 months later, and who knows how much longer we'll be working from home. That we sort of said, well, this is we got to do something about this. So we've been trying to do more of these human connection moments where we're setting up these activities where people can come out of their day-to-day project work and connect over lunch or board games or just listening to music or something like that. So that's those are some strategies that we've been using, but certainly it hasn't been easy. And I think a lot of organizations will share that. There isn't a silver bullet. I think it's trying to hold the fort and trying to keep spirits high by finding different ways to connect with one another.
Yeah, that's something that I've definitely felt, like the lack of connection, because I think at least I understated how much those serendipitous or those random connections or those random asides or conversations that I'd have in the office around with people would kind of lead to that next creative breakthrough, that next creative innovation, right? Some random thing that you see and it connects with this other thing, and all of a sudden it turns into this brand new thing. And like those have been the hardest things to recreate. So I definitely feel you guys on that. I'm glad to hear that at least you're trying your best and continuing to grow that culture. That's really great. Adrian, last week you mentioned something I want to sort of touch on here. And again, of course, this is a big challenge because we're all working remotely. But you mentioned this sort of ethos of Jam3, which is the relentless pursuit of better, right? Which I love that sort of statement. But how does this philosophy shape the culture that you're building at Jam3 and the work that you're doing, and maybe even how have you need to adjust it in this time of everybody working from home? But maybe talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it was maybe not 2017 or 16, but we were redoing our values, and in that whole process we discovered like what's the driving factor for people at Jam3? Like what gets them excited? It doesn't matter if they're creative, if they're a developer, if they're a producer or admin. And it was this idea of improving things. And that started with the initial idea was like, oh, the work, right? And so we love when when a client comes to us with a problem, and we love the idea or the concept of like, we can make it better. Right? Like we can do better than this. And it's not, you'll notice it's like we tinkered with the words a bit, and it's not the relentless pursuit of best. It's a better, right? So it's not like we're trying to be the best at things. We just love improving things. Mm-hmm. And so, this has kind of rippled out into not only our work, but like process as well. And so, we've become for 125 people, we're quite process oriented. And so, we do a lot of challenging work. We do a lot of first of its kind things. And so that work can be often incredibly challenging, time consuming, and sometimes very high risk. So, that comes with a lot of, failures. And so, we oftentimes will relook back at everything, and we'll start basically like retooling our processes. And so, whenever somebody drops the ball, and I don't want to say that they dropped the ball, but we pick it up really quickly. We gather as a group, and we're like, well, how can we avoid that from happening again? Or, hey, you know what? I think we can do this part better. And that ripples out through all of our work, through our culture, through our process. And I think it's been instrumental in figuring out kind of like who we are, kind of what makes us tick, mm-hmm. and what makes us, what kind of work will satisfy us, right? And satisfy that inner satisfaction.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I came across this statement in kind of reading. I think it was like a year or two ago. But like, there is no one perfect design solution, right? That all you can really do is try and continually get better, continuing to iterate, continuing to test and try out new things, new ideas. And again, you're never going to attain perfection, but you're going to be better than you were last time? Are you going to achieve some goal that you maybe didn't expect, right? Through process, right? Through iteration, through feedback. That's a huge part of what we do, and that was really like, I like that a lot, that you guys were saying, like, no, it's just about how do we do better than we did last time? How do we make this just a little bit better and just keep moving that ball forward? I also like what we were talking about, like you guys kind of step back and really focus on stating your values, right? And actually like stating as a leadership group, like this is kind of what, who we are and what we want to be, or what we want to aspire to be. How often do you go through those iterative phases where you're thinking about the work that you're doing and the work that you want to be doing? Does that happen on a regular basis? Is that an annual thing? Like, that's something that I don't think I've really talked with anyone about before.
Yeah, it's definitely annual.
Yeah.
I would say like partly annual, and then also like broadly, we did our values. Pablo, correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like it was 3 or 4 years ago. But that was kind of instrumental, where that was that's a large, 5-year reset to kind of be, figuring out what are the things that matters. And man, that is really tricky. Like if when you're doing it for yourself, it's very, very tricky, right? And so at the time we had 5 partners, and so just aligning on everything, and we're, it's one of those things where we're all agreeing, and then you're just really noodling the words and like how it's interpreted. But ultimately, like, figuring out how to take a list of all these, like, let's say like 15 things that really kind of make sense to you, but actually whittling it down to like, no, these are the core ones. And so we whittled that down. We actually took our staff to Miami, all of them, the 3 offices, for 3 days to kind of, there was one order of business, which was we kickstarted it with like taking everybody through the vision, the values. And, we had settled that our vision was to be the architects of tomorrow's experiences. And then we outlined everything. We talked to everybody about what the history was, how we got there, why these things matter, and why it's important. Because, I think it's one of those things that if it's important at the top, it kind of goes down through it, right? And so, whether that's being a positive person and having a positive approach to everything that you do, because this industry will constantly knock you down and throw curveballs your way. And, having passion, which is incredibly, incredibly important, because that's obviously what makes good work and what powers you through to get to those next steps, to get through those challenges, and so forth. So, Pablo, anything to add there? No.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you encapsulated most of it. I mean, I think what was interesting about, I think it was 3 years ago, we did sort of the values and mission and all that. We found that a lot of the values that, why we got into doing this was still what was driving us forward. So it was a nice sort of, discovery there that, we still value the same things. And those were the values that we were using, quote unquote, to hire people, and the hires of the values of community, building a community of positive people that are talented and that are curious. So a lot of these values became sort of a reassurance and something of a bit of a matrix, if you will, on making sure that we were living these values every day, in project work, in meetings, and interactions with staff, and all those things, right? So it becomes really clear, when you're hiring, in fact, we use our values when we're hiring in interviews too, to make sure that, there is that value alignment. And I know that our values do sort of seem pretty common, but, we really try to make sure that, people really believe in that, because I think, like I said before, 50% of it is talent. The other 50% is personality and values.
Yeah. I mean, you need to have, like having those values established, having everybody sort of bought into that, right? Anytime then in the future, if they're making a decision, whether it's on a creative project or on, talent, hiring, or, whatever move you might be making, you've got this rock, right? You've got this rock to go to, this thing to turn to sort of measure against, to sort of, throw things at, and those values can really uphold you and really can kind of keep that culture very cohesive, right? So that's great to hear that. I mean, it's something that I try and do with my team, from the very early days of XD, was really just to, establish a baseline principle or approach, right? This, and more so than the work itself, this is the thing that unifies us and helps us to achieve all those great things we sort of set out for ourselves. So that's great to hear. And so you touched on, I mean, there's a little bit in there, but you said you got together a couple years ago to sort of to just define these, redefine these values, and you're sort of working through that and growing the team. And of course these being very aspirational, but here maybe give us a little preview of what you're thinking for the next 5 years, right? Like where do you want to take Jam3 from here? What are some of those goals that you have for both the work that you're doing and the team that you're building?
I mean, that's the question of the century. It's sort of everyone's always asking that question. Like, so you got in here. We always make this analogy of like, we had a dream of going to the moon, and I think at one point we even had like a photo series of ourselves as astronauts, and launching to the moon, and then you get to the you get to the moon, you need the fuel and you need the people, and we got that, and we got to the moon, and we get out of the ship and the aircraft and put our flag there, and now we're like, what now? What are we gonna do?
Yeah.
What's next, right? And it's like, well, we want to go to Mars. Why not? Let's go to Mars. We can do it. But we need the right type of people, and we need more fuel, and we need bigger ships. So for us, it's always about and I think our vision, the way we crafted it, was to be the architects of tomorrow's experiences is sort of this aspirational, audacious goal that is never achievable, right? In some ways, right? So for us, it's always about, we're lucky to be in an industry that is keeping us on our toes with the latest and greatest, right? Just like we started the company, doing Flash work, it quickly changed into HTML5 and then WebGL, and then, it really, it sort of changed the way we work. And I think we're constantly changing and shifting. So, for us, it's always important about, good work will keep us honest, and doing good work is going to keep us headed in the right direction of being the architects of tomorrow's experiences. So for me, 5 years from now, it's about, probably doing, having a cluster of clients that really believe in our mantra and believe in our vision, and that believe that our services can really empower their businesses to make a difference through the experiences that we're doing. And that these experiences always need to be pushing the envelope of creativity, strategy, and technology, right? And as long as we're doing that work, and that's getting us excited to come out of bed every day, then mission accomplished, right? And it's easy as that. And in many ways, people always say, well, how big do you want Jam3 to get? Well, Jam3 will grow organically as we need to. But most importantly is for us not to lose sight on the work that we want to do. And that's, really important, right? So it's not about, feeding the machine. It's about, continuing to grow organically with good people and doing amazing work. Yeah.
No, it's great. Adrian, anything to add on that front? Like where what are you working towards? What as a team?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the nice thing about digital, and especially the avenues for us to play in, just keep getting wider and wider. And I think that's the easiest thing for us. Like our goals is that, like as you said, like one of our values is curiosity, and it's that element of like, ooh, we haven't done that before. I'd love to do that. And so whether we started, as Pablo said, we started off doing websites for dentists and Persian rugs. And then sooner, like over the years, we've worked in advertising, and then that moved to installations and live events, and then, retail, service design. And so for us, I think that's what we're working towards, where it's like, how far can our, arms reach, and like how many more things can we start to dabble in and play into? Because I think that's what always interests me particularly. It's like, ooh, we haven't done that before. Let's do that. And that's, it's not necessarily maybe a skill that we don't have, or that's not a department that we have. But let's give it, right?
Yeah, you'll figure it out. Yeah.
And that's,
definitely.
Yeah, that's the beautiful thing about digital. And it's caused us to reinvent ourselves and add these new skills. And I think it's an awesome thing about working at Jam3 is I think that a lot of people come, they're not necessarily specialized in one area, or they come from a specialty, but then they end up working on these other different avenues as well, right? So a designer might be doing, in a few years, might be doing experiential and, designing some shipping crate that lives in the middle of Art Basel, right? So
Exciting stuff. I mean, yeah, just keep looking for the work that you want to do. Keep challenging yourself, and yeah, you'll find the right path forward for you and your team. That's great. All right, so we got a couple questions coming in from the audience here. So Munir has a question for you. What characteristics? I mean, we talked a little bit about this in terms of like how you evaluate talent, but what characteristics? What are the things you're looking for in the candidates that are joining your team?
I can take that one if you want.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, I think I said it before. I think, you know, for me, it's always, you know, the talent specifically for the discipline that you're being hired needs to be there in the experience. I think, you know, for us, it's always about talent for sure first as a, you know, can this person operate within the discipline? And, you know, the experience aspect to me is something that you can learn over time. I mean, that's the way we've learned, you know, even growing up at Jam3. Is by experiencing, you know, and having, you know, people you learn from. I mean, you know, my whole career, I've learned from the people around me, how to be a better leader, how to be more, you know, articulative about my ideas and so forth. So, you know, I think, you know, certainly there has to be that talent, but there also has to be that passion to want to get better and do more. And that's why, you know, the values around passion and curiosity and the values of being part of a community of diverse people and being, you know, we have this terminology, you know, we call ourselves the Jam fam, right? It's like, you know, do you value, you know, the Jam fam, right? And I don't like to compare family with Jam fam because, you know, your family is first. That's very private, very personal. But we have our own version of that. Right. And you know, when you meet those people, you can tell right away they sort of speak that language. Right. So I think it's talent, it's the values, and then it's personality. Right. Are you the type of person that could get along working with a big group of people? Right. Because as Adrian said, we do a lot of very complex things. So you're interfacing with many different people. You know, the days of like 3 or 4 people project were those were like 10 years ago, right? Now we have projects that are, you know, have a core of 5 or 6, but then it goes into like 15, 20 people. Yeah. So, you know, those people skills are really important, right? And making sure that, you know, that you're you know, that you're a positive person and that you're a person that, you know, you can hang out with outside of work too, right? So all those things sort of come into the mix. So there really isn't one silver bullet, but I think it's a combination of all those things.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great thing. I think a lot of people kind of understate, or maybe just don't even know. It's just kind of ignorant to the fact that like when you get out, you go out from school, the talent's only going to get you so far. That it's really these other qualities that you know the prospective hiring people are really looking for. Like, are you excited to be here? Do you like working with other people? Can you get along with, like, those are all those qualities that you need to have to be able to get out there and be successful, right? Because your talent's only going to take you so far. So
yeah,
it's great.
For sure.
All right, second question. Oh, Adrian, do you have anything to add there? Sorry.
Oh, no. I was just saying. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Maxime has a question here. So when you're first starting Jam3 and you started, you know, where there was the 3 of you, when you first started bringing on those first few employees, you know, what were you, how were you thinking about, you know, bringing them into the fold? You know, were you in those early phases, were you already thinking about, you know, about the culture of Jam3?
Yeah, I'll take this one. And shout out to Maxime. Maxime has saved our butts on numerous projects. He is awesome. Thank you, Maxime. How did we start? So I love this one. I'm sorry. I think Pablo and I are both smiling because early days were really funny. You know, we are, you know, not to be a cliche, but we literally started above Mark's garage. And, you know, we were 3 guys in this like little tiny, like little hovel. And it was pretty fun, right? It very much, you know, when I think back to it, it's very much like, you know, working on school projects with a team. Like that was the vibe and that was the feeling. And you know, we actually managed to convince 2 people to join above a garage and to like work full time above there. And, you know, it really was about good work. And, you know, we jokingly, you know, because they were with us for quite a long time, Dennis and Aaron. And, you know, years later, we were like, why did you, like, you know, take a job above a garage? Like, and they're like, you guys seem like, you guys are doing cool work and you seem like pretty good people to work with. And, so, that's basically how it started. And that, when we first started, we didn't, our goal was the same as a lot of other people, right? So, we weren't, we were also young ourselves. We were all kind of like, we operated very flat. We still do more or less to this day, but, it was like, oh man, wouldn't it be just, let's just do really cool work and let's maybe one day win an FWA. And I think we won our first favorite website award when we were maybe about 10 people, and we like literally bought like a bottle of champagne. And it was one of those things, because like everybody at the office, nobody had won one, and that was their goal, right? Everybody was just like, oh man, it'd be awesome to be like, we were all like swooning over these other companies in the industry and just wanted to do work like them. And that's still to this day, that driving nature where it's basically like Pablo and I will get upset if we see good work. We see good work, you're just like, God, you've done that. Somebody raises the bar and you're just like, God, now we got to raise the bar too. Where you're like, oh my God. And it's that dissatisfaction with staying at one level. And I think everybody shares that vision. So, early days, I think it's easy to set a culture, right? Because you're so close to everybody, and these people end up being, like you're literally involved with everybody, up to about 10 people. You know everything about them. You're just literally, you're in their lives, and so those are fun days.
Yeah, it makes you kind of wistful, I remember sort of like some of the projects that now from a few years ago, is like starting with that core group of people and just the vibe and the feeling, and I always want to recreate that. I'm like, let's, because the team's gotten bigger and everything on XD. I'm like, how do we take some of that and like, bring it with us here? I'm always searching for that. So those are always really exciting days. I know that feeling really well. You mentioned the FWA thing, for a second here, and this is kind of another question I had sort of jotted down, which is, you guys have been, really specialized and focused on creating really unique, digital experiences. So, how do you navigate like the changes, the waves of changes in technology, over the 16 years since your founding, and just to really stay and be doing that exciting cutting edge work that you want to be doing? Like, how have you navigated that space?
When possible, we really try to give people the time and space to experiment and explore. Early days, we, like any other agency, we experimented with having labs groups and stuff like that. But for us, as I said, we're all kind of like digital geeks. And, so when we see something out there, the possibilities of new technology, we all share it internally, whether that's on Slack or an email or over somebody's desk. And, I remember the first time we saw augmented reality, and these are still like way back Flash days, where it was just like holding a cube and you're like watching the cube follow this like marker on a paper, and you're like, minds are blown, and you start immediately thinking, oh, what are the possibilities? What can we do with this? And iteratively, year over year, there's always been something new. And so we always carve out that space. I think, people, we sort of became known for that because people would come to us and we solved the challenge. We solved something tricky. Like, can you guys do this? And then we go into a quick huddle, come back, be like, okay, we think we can. Here's how we would do it. And then you sort of, we built a reputation for doing that. So then people just kept coming back, and they're like, oh, you guys are the guys that do the stuff that's like, never been done before. So like, I'm going to call you. And like, we used to call it like the bat phone, right? People would be like, call us, and they'd be like, hey, I have this like crazy idea. Is this even possible? And, we try and figure out how to do it. And so knowing that that's why people were calling us, we invested into ourselves. And I think that's kind of a theme, a running theme through everything, whether that's, how we got to where we are, where it's, we're always investing into our future and trying to build for like the next level and set ourselves up. So these days we're doing innovation sprints. So we have, we like to set them up at minimum every quarter. So we'll grab a group of people, whoever's really available, and then put them into a 1 week sprint. We give them either a topic, a client, a technology, and explore ideas and ideation around it. Sometimes we develop those things and make those things happen. But really it's that experimentation and giving that time to explore is amazing. And it's led to so much just, I would say like internal reward, but also even like we've been taking that and we show that to clients and it gets them excited. Sometimes it gives like business leads, et cetera. So.
Yeah. No, it's great to hear. I mean, always keeping striving and pushing yourself, and of course, finding clients that are willing to go along on these crazy journeys with you. It's super important as well. So yeah, I definitely hear that. All right, so we have kind of like one last question here from the audience. And of course, this is, you guys have now been at this for a while. It's always kind of crazy to sort of look back and be like, oh wow, we've done some stuff. And of course, you have these younger designers who are coming up, and I think this is a common question from from Marcus and others, like. What's a piece of advice that you would give to Marcus in this case, saying 24-year-old graphic designer? What's some advice you'd give to kind of up and coming designers who are looking to kind of get out there and start their career?
Yeah, I'm happy to chime in on this one, Adrian, if you don't mind. I think when we first started off, I think one of the things that Adrian, myself, and Mark would do a lot is compare our work to some of the top work out there. And again, we were huge fans of FWA. We were looking at every single FWA every day and saying, what makes this unique, and how does that compare with the work that we do? So my recommendation would always be, compare your work to some of the best work out there, and identify those areas that need to be improved. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? It's nothing wrong with like being subjective about your work, or getting somebody else to give you a portfolio review and give you some comments. Because I think those gaps that you have, and if you can focus on those gaps and be the best you can be at doing that, that's going to progress you and get you better, right? Like don't try to take on too much, at once. I see a lot of, designers that are doing like motion and 3D and, typography and all that stuff all at the same time. It's just really pick something that you're passionate about and compare yourself to some of the best people in the world, and then find those ways of getting better, outside of, work. I think that, the best talent are those people that are like living and breathing design at work and at home. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Always being curious, always pushing yourself, always being aware of the trends and the ideas going on out there. And yeah, you sort of, those things all influence you, right? You take them in and they just come out in your work in sometimes maybe unexpected ways.
Yeah.
So that's great.
The one thing I'd add to that is, because that was going to be exactly what I was going to say. It was the advice that was given to me as well, which is basically just, look at other people's work and just try and, at first imitate it, really, right? I mean, because when you're young and just starting, it's about honing your skill, and then as you progress through your career, you'll develop your own style, right? Mm-hmm. But at first, it's about developing that hard skill, and even the ability to just mimic good work is a feat. But ultimately, after that, I would say is like focus on the future, right? And I think a lot of people will sometimes chase the company and not the work. And I would chase the work and not the company.
Always chase the work. Yeah.
Focus on the work. Like, you can go work at the best agency in the world, but if you're stuck doing banners, it's not going to do anything for your career.
Yeah.
Focus on the work, and the rewards will come. Definitely, it'll pay dividends in the long run.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. Both of those statements from the two of you. All right, I got one last question for you. And of course, this is a close one to my heart because feel like I'm always struggling in this area. But like, what's keeping you creative right now? And we'll start with Pablo and go to Adrian. What's keeping you creative right now? What are you doing for that sort of shock of creative inspiration? What's keeping you going right now?
I mean, it's everything. It's there isn't really one. A lot of people say it's magazines or websites or blogs or museums or whatever it is. It's really everything. I think for us, inspiration was FWA at the very beginning, and then as we sort of matured in our own roles, it was about reading as much as possible. Mm-hmm. Learning from your mistakes. I mean, I try to read as many books about management, about creativity, about building an innovative team. It's just about reading as many perspectives as possible, and it's pulling out what works for you, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's been a real sort of driver for me on inspiration, right? It's sometimes inspiration comes from life experiences. Sometimes inspiration can come from a walk with nature. It just really, it's everything for me, and and just being passionate about what you do.
Yeah. Great. That's great. How about you, Adrian? What's keeping you creative right now? What's inspiring you?
Absolutely. I mean, I think as a business owner, you know, you're kind of attached to your business. So like it's your baby, and you're just constantly thinking about it. And so even when you're on vacation, you just, you know, your mind frees up from all the clutter of work, only for like new ideas to just start being like, you know, it'd be really good if we did this. You're like, I'm gonna remember to do that. But in terms of like keeping creatively inspired, my staff, you know, that's what inspires me. I mean, it's so wonderful to see the cohesion amongst them, and you know, the liveliness and the energy. And it really reminds me of like when I was at each one of their positions and their stages in their careers. So, you know, we have these channels on Slack, whether it's company wide or just the creative department focused, and the amount of like knowledge sharing, inspiration, links, anything from like films and culture to like really good work and design and portfolios. That's where I look, and that's where I get inspired from. I love it.
No, it's great to hear. I mean, you know, the more we can keep that connection to each other, we can inspire one another, it's going to pay off in the work that we do. So thank you both for joining us. I mean, again, it's always such a pleasure for me to chat with talented people like yourselves. It's, you know, what keeps me excited about doing my job. So thank you for that. And we're going to bring back on Tom and Kristen here to wrap it up. But again, you guys, you know, best of luck through the end of the year. And yeah, it's great thanks for joining us.
Yeah, big thanks to Talon and Adrian and Pablo. It was a great discussion today, and you know, having known these guys for a while, I'm just so impressed with the work that they do and with the company and culture they've built. You know, they represent as creative leaders this sort of balance that I really love. They're both gracious, but they're really driven in the work that they do. There's a humility there, but they're still really hungry to do cool stuff. And in this, you know, this notion of, you know, relentless pursuit of better, you know, this notion of through reflection, through inquiry, through constant experimentation, you can continue to make things better. And I just think that's an amazing lesson for all of us. And I appreciate Adrian and Pablo for being with us today, and Talon again for just leading the conversation.
Yes, I second all of that. Amazing conversation. Thank you guys so much. And we'll close out for today. But just as a reminder, the SoDA Series Live is a collaboration between the Society of Digital Agencies and the Adobe XD team here at Adobe. You can access more articles and interviews on the SoDA Series on XD Ideas. We'll drop that link in the chat pod. And we hope that you can join us at noon Eastern time on Thursday, January 21st, where we have a conversation with Wesley Tahar, one of the founders at Media Monks and executive director at S4 Capital Group, which is Sir Martin Sorrell's new agency group, of which Media Monks is now a part. So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful holiday, and we'll hope to see you in January.
Yeah, thank you all for being here.